So in my life, I've applied to a music composition degree 3 times. My first application was way back in 2010, which led me to a bachelor's degree at the University of Southern California. My second application happened 4 years later, which led me to the East Coast, where I pursued my master's degree at Juilliard. After I graduated from Juilliard, I wanted to take some time to reassess myself after, of course, 6 years of composition studies. I took a year off, and then I decided to apply to Columbia University for my doctorate degree. And I'm hoping this is the final degree I do, at least in music composition. No, at least ever. I don't want to do another degree after this one. Now in today's video, I'm going to focus on the second application, namely the compositions that I submitted for my portfolio. Those pieces got me into the master's programs over at Juilliard, Rice, and the New England Conservatory. Fair warning though, it did not get me into the Yale School of Music. Definitely have no resentment towards them at all. Totally cool. Don't mind it at all. But hey, 3 out of 4 is not bad. I'll take it. And by the way, you're going to end up at only one of these schools anyway, so you just got to get into one. So let's get started with the first of 3 pieces, my guitar etudes, which, guess what, is scored for solo guitar. So here's a score to my guitar etudes. You can see right here I have the title page with my name, the title of the piece, and what the instrumentation is, a very basic thing right there. Everything on the top and the bottom is pretty much extra. I just like to put that there, basically for me. And then on the second page here, you have the inside page. You have the instrumentation, the duration, and then this piece is actually organized into 6 etudes. So I actually mark what the 6 etudes are. And then of course I have my program note, which you should always have listed on that inside page. On the bottom there, I have my little logo, Dib Press, that's my publishing company, and my website. Again, you don't need to put those things down there, but I do that because I have a logo and I have a website for my compositions. So I just put it there because that's where it would go if you had something like that. Now, if I go to the next page here, you can see the first page of the score. And the first thing you should realize, or at least notice when you see something like this, is that it's very well laid out in terms of the score. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stabs on the page, a lot of white space in between, but not too much white space. So it's very important at this stage for your master's degree that it actually looks professional, looks like a publisher actually published the music. And this way they have a sense of, well, you take your music seriously. So why would they take your music seriously as someone that is admitting you to a school for a master's degree in composition if you don't take your own music seriously? So just that kind of first eyeball glance of what the music actually looks like, believe it or not, is a big indicator of how your application will do. Okay, so let's take a listen to the piece. So I set up this motive, this E minor, F sharp major motive. And now we're developing that idea. So it's very traditional score in that way. With a little bit of rhythmic complexity. It's not always those triplets going over and over and over again. And back to the beginning here, basically. But we're turning around to do something else now. We're not doing the stuff that we just did at the beginning. Oh, and now we're back to what we were doing in the beginning. And we kind of end with this tag. Now I start immediately into the second movement, the second etude, a lot slower, a lot more open. But the important thing is that I'm using the guitar in a very idiomatic way. I'm doing different things with the guitar, so I'm showing a committee that I can not just doing fast single note stuff with the guitar, I can also do these long chords. I know how the guitar works in terms of where do the double stops occur, how do I do the arpeggios, where exactly do those circled numbers mean, what do the Roman numerals mean, etc. And here is an artificial harmonic. So I have a grasp of what that possibility is on the guitar. But it's not throwing all these different things for the guitar to do. You're still trying to make a musical argument out of the guitar itself. And introducing a new technique there, but again, doing it in a kind of slow way, in a developmental way, in a way that doesn't make it something that's just randomly there. And then here the artificial harmonics come back, but more in a melodic way instead of just those two notes that kind of happened on the second system. And just like this first movement, I have a little tag at the end of the second movement. So this is kind of going to be a recurring theme throughout all 6 etudes. And here in the third etude, I also start out slow, but even slower than the second etude. So you might think, for me, it's like going against expectations. Oh, for the third movement, he's going to go back to being fast. But actually, no, I even go slower in the third etude. But then playing around with expectations again. No, we're going to go fast again. So I actually forgot what happens in this piece. This piece is 10 years old, from 2012. So I actually forgot that at this moment it gets to be fast. So it even played with my expectations a little bit, even though I wrote the freaking thing. So basically what I'm trying to get at is that if you're going to write a piece like this, especially a solo piece, it's really important, A, to make sure that it's going to be well recorded, B, that it looks like a professional, presentable score, and C, that you're doing things that are idiomatic for the instrument, but you're doing it in a language that's all your own as well. So if you've already seen my undergraduate portfolio video, you can already tell that this piece is a lot better than any of those pieces. It's better in terms of the ideation of the overall piece, the sense of form, and most importantly, the way that I'm actually writing for the instrument. I'm writing for it in an idiomatic way. You can tell that I actually spent some time with the instrument, with the player, and actually getting to know how the guitar works in my language. 10 years later, I'm still actually very proud of this piece, and I'm happy whenever I hear someone is going to play it. I don't cringe at all with this piece like I do with all my pieces from my undergraduate portfolio. Now the second piece in my portfolio is for an entirely different ensemble, a choir, and I use the text from William Blake's Songs of Innocence and Experience. So just like with the guitar etudes, for this piece, The Little Boy, I have a title page with my name as the composer, and the copyright, the website, my publishing name, all that good stuff. On the second page, this would be the inside page. I do again have the instrumentation, the duration, and I have the text for the William Blake Songs of Experience piece that I used for my composition. On the bottom, I have my program notes, and on the very bottom, I have my website. So very similar to what I did with the guitar etudes. You want to have a consistent kind of feel with all your scores, so it all kind of looks like it was the same composer that did all that music. Now, if I head to the next page here, I actually see the score. Again, you wanted to make it as professional looking as possible. Since this is an a cappella choir piece, usually what they expect is that you have a piano, staff down here, and you would only use it for rehearsal. So I actually have it down here below the soprano, alto, tenor, and the bass. But instead of having it as a normal size staff like the rest of these staffs here, it just says for rehearsal only, and it's in a very small staff size, which you can easily do in Sibelius, Dorico, or Finale. Okay, so let's get on to listening to the piece. So instead of just having the text play out, I do stretch some things here and there. I'm using my creative license to mold the text in the way that I want to. Especially with the word father, I use it a lot as a rhythmic kind of figure. And then finally we get to our first cadence, which doesn't even happen until the third page. And notice how every time the word father comes, it has that same rhythmic motive. Dee-da, dee-da. Even in passages where you wouldn't think that that rhythmic motive would need to occur, I do it here. And notice how the harmony is pretty consistent. I'm using these big kind of seventh chord and major second kind of sonorities all throughout. And all of a sudden we're switching meter. And we switch meter because of the text. The night was dark. Completely different text, completely different music. And now we switch to the tenor and the bass doing The Night Was Dark. And now we're going back to the soprano and alto doing The Night Was Dark. So going back and forth between the soprano altos and the tenor bass. The melody in the tenor and the bass. And now we're kind of consistent now with the texture. And now that father motive comes back, but notice it's a lot slower, a lot darker, because no father was there, as the text is telling us. Again, with this very close harmony that I've been using all throughout the piece. So this is kind of just a little bit of a taste of this choral work. If you've heard my undergraduate portfolio choral work, you'll notice that this is a big step up from that piece, which I had written a few years before this piece. Again, this is an old piece too. This is from like 2013 or so. So, if you keep at it, your works are obviously going to get better, but you got to keep working on it. You can't just assume one piece is just going to magically get better than the last piece. It's a constant process of improvement. So as you can tell, these two pieces already are very different from each other. It's very important to show contrasting styles and mediums in which you can work as a composer. Now, showing that you can work with text is definitely a plus, but it's not a requirement at all for your portfolio. In both my undergrad and master's portfolio, I just happened to have choral works for whatever reason. It just was a coincidence. It wasn't something that I did on purpose. The main thing is to make sure that these pieces are recorded and engraved to a somewhat professional standard by this stage of the game. Now, quick pit stop to let you know that I do offer one-on-one consultations and lessons in regards to anything composition related. This can range for helping you put together your portfolio for any composition degree that you're applying to, or you might want to improve your creative chops as a composer from week to week or month to month. Or you might want to get a better handle of the behind the scenes of what it's like to be a composer. How do you sell your sheet music? How do you negotiate commission rates? How do you apply to contests? How do you apply to grants? How do you do anything as a composer, let alone just writing the music? So if this is you, you can contact me using the link down in the description below. Now let's move on to the final piece of my master's degree portfolio. This is a large orchestral work called Maelstrom, which the USC Symphony recorded back in 2013. So just like the other pieces, this piece does have a title page. It's a lot more fancy of a title page. This is not needed. I just happen to have a friend, Kelsey Napier, who designed this cover art for me. So I wanted to have this ship with this water and the big fire kind of a scenario play out to depict this maelstrom, this storm. So it's just something that we had fun with, her and I, while we were at USC together. So again, we have the title, the composer, And then in the inside page, we have again the title of the composer, and then we have the instrumentation. Very, very important in an orchestral score. This is how they know for sure you don't know what you're doing, is if you put the wrong order of instruments for an orchestral score. So if you just take a look at the order of instruments I have here, I have piccolo, then the flutes, oboes, then the English horn, clarinets, bassoons. So you want all the woodwinds at the top, and they are always in that order. You never have, clarinets above the oboes, or bassoons above the clarinets, or any of this kind of stuff. This is the order that you have to put it in. Then next after that are the brass. The horns go first, not the trumpets, it's the horns. So here I have horns in F, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then I have my trumpets in C, 1, 2, 3. Then the trombones, 1 and 2, bass trombone, followed by the tuba. So it's always woodwinds, brass. Right after that is timpani, if you're using timpani. Then I have my percussion instruments. And you can list the percussion instruments in a variety of ways. Here I actually listed what instruments each percussionist is playing. So percussion 1 is the first percussion player. He's playing tam-tam, glockenspiel, tom-toms, large whip, xylophone. The second percussion player is playing chimes, bass drum, suspended cymbal, crash cymbal. And the third percussion player is playing chimes, 2 suspended cymbals, 2 break drums, glockenspiel, and tam-tam. Notice how the first percussion player and the third percussion player are both playing the glockenspiel. This is one way to do it. You can also just list all the percussion instruments and just have the percussionists figure it out. They won't be too happy if you do that, but you could also do it theoretically in that way. After that is the piano, and I have it doubled with celesta. Then I have the harp, and then I have the strings. And for strings, you don't have to write violins, viola, cello, double bass. If you just write the word strings, they know that you mean violins, violas, cellos, and double basses. And usually with the violins, you would split them up into violin 1 and violin 2, okay? And then the rest of it here, I have my program notes, and I give credit for the artist Kelsey Napier, with a duration of 7 minutes. It's just a short, very short orchestral work. Now, if we take a look at the next page, again, we have the first page of music with the instrument names on the left here, and it's in the same exact score order as we saw it on the inside page. So make sure that you stay consistent. That's one way, again, as I mentioned before, that they're gonna know that that you weren't really paying attention when you were making your own score. If you don't care, they don't care. So that's like the thing when it comes to applying to, especially a master's degree program. They need to see that you care about your score and how it's presented before they even care about how it even looks or even sounds, all right? So you gotta imagine they're dealing with so many applications. Make yours stand out in the crowd. I mean, that's the name of the game when you're competing against like 300 applications for a few slots in a master's degree program. So here I start out with just strings, and they're all doing something completely different. We already know that we're in the eye of the storm just from the get-go. It's a little more cinematic than I tend to write these days, but that was the mood I was in during those USC days. But the main thing is that it showcases that, at this time I knew how to write for the different families of instruments, and I showed it right at the beginning of the piece too. The strings have their role, the brass have their role, and the woodwinds have their role. And here I'm showing, the percussion has their role as well. So especially with an orchestral piece, it's really important to show that at the get-go of your piece. And you don't need to have everybody playing all the time. Here it's actually, the score looks very sparse, but the texture still seems full. And I have space to put in this, tuba bass trombone melody. And now I have space to put this horn melody. We haven't heard from the horns for a while. And now we have this kind of Mahler-esque strings melody that emerged out of nowhere. And continuing on with the string melody, showing that I want to stick to an idea. I don't change ideas all of a sudden. And then kind of still have that same idea from the woodwinds, but now it's in the forefront. Before it was in the background. And notice now here that the 16th notes are in the foreground. So just a little bit of an orchestrational play. And notice that the strings are more kind of in the background, but now we're starting to emerge from the texture again. But very slowly, not that big Mahler-esque melody that I had before. And then we're starting to have this kind of slow build, you know, again, with the idea of the maelstrom and getting into the eye of the storm. So very narrative in that aspect. And we have our arrival points. I haven't actually heard this piece in a while, so it's kind of strange to listen to it after all these years. This is a piece from 2013. And again, we're starting this climb again. So it's very narrative, it's very programmatic in that aspect of you're getting into this storm, and then we have these kind of, you know, moments of respite, and then, oh my God, the storm is going to happen again. So it plays into the idea of the piece. And then again, we start again. So this is the kind of thing that, you know, I wouldn't say that, no, the reason I'm showing a piece like this is not because, you know, this is the way you should write or anything like this, but, you know, when they see an orchestral work, they want to know that you have the chops to deal with the different kinds of instruments, that you have something to say, even if it's not something that you would necessarily write, you know, 10 years from now. Like, I don't write music like this at all anymore, but at least it's showing them that, you know, you're not just a beginner when it comes to dealing with the orchestra. You have some chops in terms of dealing with the different families, how they go together, and keeping all these ideas organized in your mind, and you're able to put them down on paper. All right, that's it for now. Now get to writing.